I give the floor to Mikko for his talk, State of the Net. So if you can start the presentation. So,
all right.
And we are looking forward for the keynote.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thanks to all of you for joining today. In 1992, I had a holiday. I went to Austria, the Austrian Alps. A couple of friends with me. We flew to Munich. We rented a car. We drove to Austria. We went to the Alps, to a small lake where we had a boat rented, and we spent a couple of days on a boat in the Alps in the summer, which was nice. 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I was chatting at our office with a guy who works in our IT department. I was having a new laptop issued, and he wanted to chat with me because he knew I had a very long history with the company. And we were speaking about how life was different when the company was smaller and all that. And somehow we ended up speaking about Alps and Austria, and I mentioned this trip. And this IT guy was young. He was like 25. And he asked me that, tell me, Mikko, in 1992, how did you organize a trip like that? Like, how did you find about this place you were going on? How did you rent a car? How did you drive from Munich to Alps? How did you rent a boat remotely from Finland? Because there's no internet. Well, there's no web. Internet existed, but web certainly didn't. And this was a great question because I had no answer. I honestly couldn't recall. I couldn't remember how the hell did you do things like these before the web? Like, how did you find where to rent boats in Austria when I'm in Helsinki and there's no internet, there's no Google, there's no nothing? I couldn't answer him. I had to think back. Eventually I did remember, of course. I mean, the way you used to do things like these before the web is that you would call directory service. Here in Finland, there would be a special phone number where there would be a person with phone books for all different countries. And you would ask him that, hey, I'm trying to find a boat renting place from this part of Austria. Do you have the yellow pages for the physical phone book for Austria? Yes, I do. Could you please search for some numbers? And I would write them down. Then I would call up the phone renting place and use my school German to try to figure out how to rent a boat. Same thing for renting a car. And of course, then when we're driving, there's no GPS, there's no electric maps, so you have paper maps. And I think it's a great illustration on how much the world has changed so quickly. And this, well, to me, it really isn't that long ago. And of course, it is a long time ago. But the world is changing now faster than ever before. Technology is changing the world faster than ever before. The internet is changing the world faster than ever before. And we are all living in the middle of a massive technological revolution. And it's kind of hard to see these revolutions when you are living in the middle of them. But it's easier to see how much the world is changing right now if you took the viewpoint from, let's say, 200 years into the future or 500 years into the future. Imagine someone writing a history book about our time, about the early 2000s. What's the most important thing? What's the most defining thing which has happened during our generations? What's the number one thing they would write about us in history book written in the year 2500? Well, the first thing they would say about us is that we were the first people who got online. Mankind lived on this planet for 100,000 years without the internet. We happened to be around when it became a thing, and internet will be part of mankind's future forever. We just happen to be living in the middle of this transitional time. And it's changing everything. Of course, it's changing everything, but it's kind of hard to see all of these changes happening because we are in the middle of it. Sure, the web came around 1992, 1993. I set up the first website for our company in April 1994, and I remember this well because it was website number 17 in Finland. There were 16 websites, and we were website number 17. Today, you couldn't count, of course, how many sites there are because there's too many. But the internet itself has been around for far longer, based on ARPANET, based on TCP/IP protocols. I was born in 1969. In October 1969. Basically, I was born 2 months before ARPANET for the first time connected two machines to each other, which you would think at the beginning of the internet. So this is how old the internet is. I'm 2 months older than the internet, if that's the way you think about it. And I honestly do believe that internet is the best thing which has happened during our lifetime. And I honestly do believe it's the worst thing which has happened during our lifetime. It has brought us so much good, so much improvement, so much new business, so much new connectivity, so many new forms of entertainment. I love the internet. But at the same time, it has brought us all these downsides, all the new types of risks, crime, the fact that conspiracy theories thrive now better than ever before. Clearly, it has its own downsides as well. And they're always exactly the same things when you look at it from the other point of view. Now, this revolution that we're living in has changed our lives, but it has changed the lives of minorities even more than majorities. And here, when I say minorities, I don't mean any specific type of minority, any kind of minority. Let's say you have a rare hobby. Before the internet, if you had a rare hobby, there was nobody in your town who would have the same hobby. You were alone, you had no support. And then the internet comes around, and suddenly you find people like you with the same hobby as you from all over the world. You're not alone. There's tons of people like you. And we humans are animals. We're herd animals. We need the support from people like us. And that's one of the big upsides of the internet. Even if you belong to a very small group, even if you're different, even if you're a minority, you'll find people like yourself. And this same specific thing has a huge downside. You see, when people belong to, hold on, I have a signal call coming in. Soitas takaisin. The problem with Signal is that it's ringing on my desktop to my ear, so I have to do something about that. Sorry about it. And the thing about destructive minorities is that they get the same kind of support as any other kind of minority. Minorities like people who are suicidal or who dream about arranging school shootings or other types of terrorist attacks. They will find people like themselves. They will get the support from other people. It's exactly the same thing. It's great and it's awful at the same time. And we often say that internet is just a tool. Technology is just a tool. You know, they can be used for good or they can be used for bad. They're neutral. Sure, I agree. And then again, I don't. For example, when we discuss encryption technologies, well, encryption is a great example of an innovation which has brought us great benefits. Or security, for example, online commerce relies on encryption. Our online privacy relies on encryption. Great benefits indeed. And it brings us great problems. The fact that criminals can now also communicate safely and securely. Extremists, terrorists, bad people get the same benefits as we do. And once we invent something, we cannot uninvent it. We cannot make it go away. Which means we can't restrict these technologies after they have been invented. If we invent something like uncrackable encryption, and then we think the downsides are too big, we can't really make it illegal. Because if we make it illegal, then the benefits go out. We, law-abiding citizens, won't then use those technologies because it's illegal. But of course, the people who break the laws, the criminals, of course, well, they break the laws. So they will break that law as well. We can't uninvent technology. But it gets more muddy when you think about technologies like, let's say, cryptocurrencies, or let's say Tor hidden service. Sure, absolutely you can use cryptocurrencies for good, and absolutely you can use them for bad. Are they used more for bad than good? Well, we could argue about that, but many would say that there's more crime being conducted with cryptocurrencies than legal things. Or let's take an even better example, Tor hidden service. Now, I'm very well aware of the history of Tor hidden service, why it was developed, and how important it is for people living in totalitarian states. Sure, and I have no doubt in my mind that Tor hidden service is used more for bad than good. Yes, it is a tool. Yes, it can be used for good or bad. Yes, it's neutral as a technology, but still, I have no doubt that there's more badness being done with websites hosted in Tor hidden service than good things. All the illegal trade, all the destructive discussions. We can argue all we want about how technology is just a tool and how it's neutral, but it's not really true. And of course, our privacy has changed probably more than anything else because of this revolution that we're living in. Before the internet, we were relying on mass media to get the information we wanted. We would be reading the newspapers, watching the television, listening to radio. So it was one too many distribution of information. And then when social networks and technologies like YouTube became available, it felt like utopia. Like, wow, for the first time in mankind's history, now everybody can publish their thoughts to the world. Anybody can make a video, anyone else can see it. Everybody can start publishing. Felt like utopia, and now we've woken up that it's no utopia. It's more like a nightmare. This is the reason why conspiracy theories thrive. And these new technologies enabled closer tracking of citizens than anything we've ever seen before. Enabled information operations which can be used to sway the outcomes of democratic elections. And when we were getting our news from newspapers, the publisher of those news had no idea what exactly we were reading and what exactly we were interested in. You see, when newspaper was on paper, the only bit of data the publisher had was that I was subscribing to the paper. Today, when I'm reading my news from the website of that same newspaper, they know exactly how many seconds I spend on each article. They know exactly which topics I bypass and which topics I spend a lot of time on. They know exactly which politicians, when they are mentioned in the headlines, will make me read the news and which parties I will ignore. In fact, if you're wearing a smart watch, they will be able to detect which articles will increase my blood pressure and where I will stay neutral. Never before in mankind's history have we been able to be tracked as closely as we are today. We even sleep next to our tracking devices. We just don't call them tracking devices. We call them smartphones. But that's what we do. Internet is the best and the worst innovation of our time. And it's not just privacy that's suffering. Technology also shapes the way we fight our wars. It shapes the way we resolve our conflicts. Cyber weapons are a very real thing. cyber war is a very real thing. And cyber weapons make sense. It makes perfect sense why militaries and intelligence agencies are interested in offensive use of the internet. Cyber weapons are effective. They are affordable. And they are deniable. When you have a weapon which is effective, affordable, and deniable, you have a pretty good weapon. Especially the deniability part is important, especially for offensive use by entities like intelligence agencies. Spying has always been about collecting information, and information has changed. Information used to be physical, it used to be on paper. So if you wanted to steal this information, you had to physically come to the information so you could steal it. Today, most information is not like this. Most information is data. It's on our computers, it's in our networks. You don't have to go physically anywhere to reach that information. Exactly as crime has changed, because criminals don't need to travel anymore. Crime used to be local. War used to be local. The internet takes away geography, it takes away distance, it takes away borders. We used to have to worry about criminals who were living in our city. Now, when you get hit by crime, most likely the criminal is on a different continent because the crime happens online. In 1993, my home city of Helsinki, no, actually, my home country of Finland, all of Finland had 110 bank robberies. We had 110 bank robberies in our country in 1992 or 1993. The last time we had a bank robbery was 11 years ago. They've stopped happening. Instead, bank robbers have stopped going into physical banks with guns to steal physical cash, and they've started using online bank robberies, targeting credit card numbers and cryptocurrency exchanges to make their money. Completely global crime where geography doesn't matter anymore. And when we look at warfare today, borders still matter in the real world, but they don't matter in the online world. And modern conflicts like what's happening in Ukraine right now are fought in all the domains we have for warfare. That's land war, sea war, air war, space war, and cyberspace war. Now in Ukraine, we really shouldn't overemphasize the importance of cyber warfare, because most of the action in Ukraine has definitely been in the real world, not in the online world. But still, online warfare has definitely been part of the full picture of that conflict. And it's quite remarkable to see government officials openly recruit foreign civilians to participate in the war and point them targets, ask them to attack them online. So almost like science fiction, except it's not science fiction, it's happening right now. Also, I really had to do a double take when I saw that the Ukrainian cyber police, which is of course in a crucial position to fight Russian aggression right now, they've been collecting donations for their operations online, and they accept Monero donations. They are also selling NFTs to collect money for the Ukrainian government. So the police selling NFTs is weird, but even weirder is police accepting Monero donations. Because in my line of business, we only see Monero, the cryptocurrency, being used by online drug traders. That's basically the only use I've seen for it ever. Except now, Ukrainian cyber police is using it to collect donations to fight Russians. Five years ago, I invented a new term, Cybercrime Unicorns. And here, unicorns is a reference to unicorn companies, technology startups, which are valued to be over $1 billion in valuation. And the idea I had 5 years ago was that one day we might see cybercrime gangs which are so successful in their attacks that we should be considering them to be unicorns. Well, unfortunately, I was right. Cybercrime unicorns are real. Cybercrime unicorns are here today. And they're not only here because cybercrime is making more money. It is making more money, but the real reason is that these kind of attackers have enjoyed the benefits of massively increased valuations of cryptocurrencies. 5 years ago, when I invented the term, we knew of several cybercrime gangs which were holding wealth of, let's say, $10 million or 10 million euros. Now, if you had 10 million euros in Bitcoin 5 years ago, and you just kept them there, you have €1 billion today, because the value of Bitcoin has increased 100-fold in 5 years. This is the real reason why we now see massively wealthy cybercrime gangs, which means they can invest into their attacks. And this is worrying, because now we see cybercrime gangs operating professionally, just like any traditional real-world cybercrime gangs do, by recruiting specialists, by recruiting lawyers, financial people, business analysts, by running their own data centers, by running their own support units, by building branding. Now, why would cybercrime gangs build branding? Well, think about gangs like, the biggest ransomware gangs. They all have websites, they all have brands, they all have names, because they need their victims to be scared. They need their victims to know of their reputation. And this is especially worrying because now over the last 2 years, we've seen a couple of instances where cybercrime gangs have set up fake security companies, including a company called Combine Security, which we saw, which was a penetration testing company recruiting pen testers for fully remote works, where your job is to do pen tests at client networks, find vulnerabilities that can be used to break in, and then write a report about them. And the people they hired were security people like you and me, who had no idea that this company doesn't exist. And the pen tests they are doing are being done into networks of companies which have not ordered a pen test. And the report they write will then be used by the criminals to break into these networks. The salaries they were paying were really nice, basically twice the salaries of legitimate companies. And the next step in that development will be that they will start hiring AI people and ML people. What will the first machine learning fueled attacks look like? I think they will start by simply automating their campaigns. When you look at modern malware attacks, like ransomware attacks, they need the actual operation, they need a target list, they need a distribution mechanism, and then they need the actual operational facilities. And these are all being run by humans. So let's say they use email to spam out malicious links, which link to a website with an exploit, which will then drop a ransomware on the computers. This means somebody has to write the ransomware. Somebody has to write the emails, the actual text. Somebody has to come up with the email lists of, let's say, 500,000 email addresses, and then someone has to operate all of this. Let's start sending out the emails. Are our emails getting blocked and filtered? Yes, they are. Let's modify the email and let's retry. Now we're getting through. Are the actual emails getting clicked by users, and do the actual URLs work, or are they getting blocked by content filtering systems? They're getting blocked. Let's change the URLs. Let's set up new websites. Excellent. Now our websites work. The actual binary is getting dropped onto their hard drive. Is it getting blocked by endpoint security, or XDRs, or EDRs, or MDRs, or antivirus? Yes, it is. Let's recompile the binary to make it go through. Now, all of this could be replaced with a fairly simple Python script. And when you add on a little bit of learning functionality, all of this could be automated permanently. And this hasn't happened yet, but it will. And the fact that we have cybercrime unicorns amongst us will make this reality faster than we would like it to become a reality. Our work, the work of security people, matters today more than ever. Everything is becoming digital. Every company is a software company. We all want to be able to use our system safely, securely, and in privacy. We have to try to do all of these things at the same time. And our enemy is becoming more wealthy and more powerful. And then we don't only have to worry about criminals, we also have to worry about foreign government, foreign intelligence agencies, and foreign militaries. This means that there is, how should I say it, job security in security. There's job security in security. The internet is the best thing and the worst thing which has happened during our lifetime. And even though my trip to Austria in 1992 happened just a moment ago, it really happened a lifetime ago, in a different world, in a different time, in a world without the internet. The world is changing so fast we don't even notice it. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for your work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mikko, for the fantastic talk. And I think indeed it is worrisome to look at the current state of the internet. And yeah, so I suppose yeah, we need to be proactive in the whole cybersecurity community in Europe and all over the world. So first, I would like to take some questions if you have any to our keynote speaker, Mikko. And like, please raise your hand. And if you have any, like, we can have a short discussion. Yeah, if you have any questions? So maybe from one question from my side, Mikko. So you talked about this AI-enabled attacks from the cyber like the gang, you said, right? Like the
Cybercrime unicorns.
Yeah, cybercrime unicorns. So how do you see ourselves this resilience from the European cybersecurity community? Like, do you think that we should also go against like active type of defense, like in line of? So, and how do you see the scope in next 10 years? Like how it has potential, and how it could develop?
The only thing which can stop bad AI will be good AI. The good news there is that good AI is reality. It's in everyday use, unlike bad AI. Whenever I discussed with journalists about criminals using machine learning and AI, and I tell them that, you know, we're not really seeing it yet, but we will see it soon. Very often I get pushback that no, of course they're using it already, and I've read about attacks using machine learning. And then when I ask for details, it either goes down the route that there was this phishing attack which was using deep fake voice technologies to sound like a boss, which may or may not have happened. We've never really seen evidence of that happening. Maybe it's just a guy who sounds like the boss, who knows? Or it goes down the route that there's this paper about attacks, which is an academic paper or an industry paper, which is theoretical. That's not real. That's a theoretical attack. But like I said, security use of ML has been around forever. In fact, it's quite surprising. The first machine learning program we started at our company was in 2005. 2005, 17 years ago. 17 years it's an eternity ago in this space. But that's when we started automating our malware replication and detection systems, basically automating the work of our analysts in the lab at the time. So how do we know bad guys are not already automating these campaigns that I described? Because our end of this picture is already automated. Whenever they send out emails or modify the URLs or recompile the binary, our reaction is very quick. Security companies react automatically with automation. So it's kind of ping pong where the pong from our side comes always immediately. And then they need a lot of time to adjust because it's done manually. When both sides use automation, then the game will be ping pong, ping pong, ping pong, very quick. Everybody, both sides will react automatically and the rate of attacks will escalate. We will not be missing when this happens, and it simply hasn't happened yet, but it will happen soon.
Okay, so thank you for the answer. Yeah, it will be tricky, I suppose, like when the AI comes into play, and how this will the scenario will look like. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, so I do not see any questions. So if you have any question, like you can always be in touch. I think he's very active in Twitter. I think like we can also if you have one question, we could tag you, I guess.
Sure.
And yeah. So and I so from our side, we appreciate very much that you joined us and gave your thoughts and for the keynote. So we